Leviticus chapter 1. And Yahweh called to Moses and spoke to him out of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, If any man of you bring an offering to Yahweh, he shall bring your offering of the cattle, of the herd, and of the flock. And if his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before Yahweh. And he shall put his hand upon the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted for him to make atonement for him. And he shall kill the bullock before Yahweh, and the priests, Aaron's sons, shall bring the blood, and sprinkle the blood round about upon the altar by the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he shall flay the burnt offering, and cut it into his pieces. And the sons of Aaron the priest shall put fire upon the altar, and lay the wood in order upon the fire. And the priests, Aaron's sons, shall lay the parts, the head and the fat, in order upon the wood that is on the fire which is upon the altar. But his inwards and his legs shall he wash in water. And the priest shall burn all upon the altar, a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savor to Yahweh. And if his offering be of the flocks, of the sheep, or of the goats, for a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring it a male without blemish. And he shall kill it on the side of the altar northward in front of Yahweh. And the priests, Aaron's sons, shall sprinkle his blood round about upon the altar. And he shall cut it into his pieces, with his head and his fat. And the priest shall lay them in order upon the wood that is on the fire, which is upon the altar. But he shall wash the inwards and the legs with water. And the priest shall bring it all, and burn it upon the altar, a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savor to Yahweh. And if the burnt sacrifice for his offering to Yahweh be of fowls, then he shall bring his offering of turtle doves or of young pigeons, and the priest shall bring it to the altar, and wring off his head, and burn it upon the altar, and the blood of it shall be wrung out at the side of the altar. And he shall pluck away his crop with his feathers, and cast it beside the altar on the east part by the place of ashes. And he shall cleave it with the wings of it, but it shall not divide it in two. And the priest shall burn it upon the altar, upon the wood that is upon the fire, a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire of a sweet savor to Yahweh. End of chapter. Leviticus chapter 2. And when any will offer an oblation of a meal offering to Yahweh, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it, and put frankincense on it. And he shall bring it to Aaron's sons the priests, and he shall take out his handful of the flour of it, and of the oil of it, and all the frankincense of it, and the priest shall burn the memorial of it upon the altar, an offering made by fire of a sweet savor to Yahweh. And the remnant of the oblation of the meal offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is a thing most holy of the offerings of Yahweh made by fire. And if you bring an oblation of a meal offering baked in the oven, it shall be unleavened cakes of fine flour mingled with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil. And if your oblation be a meal offering baked in a pan, it shall be of fine flour unleavened, mingled with oil. You shall part it in pieces and pour oil on it. It is a meal offering. And if your oblation be a meal offering baked in the frying pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. And you shall bring the meal offering that is made of these things to Yahweh, and when it is presented to the priest, he shall bring it to the altar. And the priest shall take from the meal offering a memorial of it, and shall burn it upon the altar. It is an offering made by fire of a sweet savor to Yahweh. And that which is left of the meal offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is a thing most holy of the offerings of Yahweh made by fire. No meal offering which you shall bring to Yahweh shall be made with leaven. For you shall burn no leaven, nor any honey in any offering of Yahweh made by fire. As for the oblation of the firstfruits, you shall offer them to Yahweh, but they shall not be burnt on the altar for a sweet savor. And every oblation of your meal offering shall you season with salt. Neither shall you suffer the salt of the covenant of your Elohim to be lacking from your meat offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. And if you offer a meal offering of your firstfruits to Yahweh, you shall offer for the meal offering of your firstfruits green ears of corn dried by the fire, corn beaten out of full ears. And you shall put oil on it, and lay frankincense on it. It is a meal offering. And the priest shall burn the memorial of it, of the beaten corn of it, and of the oil of it, with all the frankincense of it. It is an offering made by fire to Yahweh. End of chapter. Leviticus chapter 3. And if his oblation be a sacrifice of peace offering, if he offer it of the herd, whether it be a male or female, he shall offer it without blemish in front of Yahweh. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of his offering, and kill it at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood upon the altar round about. And he shall offer of the sacrifice of the peace offering an offering made by fire to Yahweh, the fat that covers the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And Aaron's sons shall burn it on the altar upon the burnt sacrifice, which is upon the wood that is on the fire. It is an offering made by fire, of a sweet savor to Yahweh. And if his offering for a sacrifice of peace offering to Yahweh shall be of the flock, male or female, he shall offer it without blemish. And if he offer a lamb for his offering, then shall he offer it in front of Yahweh. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of his offering, and kill it in front of the tabernacle of the congregation, and Aaron's sons shall sprinkle the blood of it round about upon the altar. And he shall offer of the sacrifice of the peace offering an offering made by fire to Yahweh. The fat of it, the whole rump, it shall he take off hard by the backbone, and the fat that covers the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And the priest shall burn it upon the altar, the food of the offering made by fire to Yahweh. And if his offering is a goat, then he shall offer it in front of Yahweh, and he shall lay his hand upon the head of it, and kill it in front of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the sons of Aaron shall sprinkle the blood of it upon the altar round about. And he shall offer of it his offering, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. The fat that covers the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar, the food of the offering made by fire for a sweet savor. All the fat is Yahweh's. A perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwellings, that you eat neither fat nor blood. End of chapter. Leviticus chapter 4. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If a soul shall sin through ignorance against any of the commandments of Yahweh, which ought not be done, and shall do against any of them, if the priest that is anointed do sin according to the sin of the people, then let him bring for his sin, which he has sinned, a young bullock without blemish to Yahweh for a sin offering. And he shall bring the bullock to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation in front of Yahweh, and shall lay his hand upon the bullock's head, and kill the bullock in front of Yahweh. And the priest that is anointed shall take of the bullock's blood, and bring it to the tabernacle of the congregation, and the priest shall dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle of the blood 7 times in front of Yahweh, in front of the veil of the sanctuary. And the priest shall put of the blood upon the horns of the altar of sweet incense in front of Yahweh, which is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour all the blood of the bullock at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he shall take from off it all the fat of the bullock for the sin offering, the fat that covers the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away, as it was taken off from the bullock of the sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar of the burnt offering. And the skin of the bullock, and all his flesh, with his head, and with his legs, and his inwards, and his dung, even the whole bullock shall he carry forth outside the camp to a clean place where the ashes are poured out, and burn him on the wood with fire. Where the ashes are poured out shall he be burnt. And if the whole congregation of Israel sin through ignorance, and the thing be hid from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done something against any of the commandments of Yahweh concerning things which should not be done, and are guilty, when the sin which they have sinned against is known, then the congregation shall offer a young bullock for the sin, and bring him in front of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands upon the head of the bullock in front of Yahweh, and the bullock shall be killed in front of Yahweh. And the priest that is anointed shall bring of the bullock's blood to the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times in front of Yahweh, even in front of the veil. And he shall put some of the blood upon the horns of the altar, which is in front of Yahweh, that is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour out all the blood at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he shall take all his fat from him, and burn it upon the altar. And he shall do with the bullock as he did with the bullock for a sin offering, so shall he do with this. And the priest shall make an atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. And he shall carry forth the bullock outside the camp, and burn him as he burned the first bullock. It is a sin offering for the congregation. When a ruler has sinned, and done something through ignorance against any of the commandments of Yahweh his Elohim concerning things which should not be done, and is guilty, or if his sin, in which he has sinned, come to his knowledge, he shall bring his offering, a kid of the goats, a male without blemish, and he shall lay his hand upon the head of the goat, and kill it in the place where they killed the burnt offering in front of Yahweh. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out his blood at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering. And he shall burn all his fat upon the altar, as the fat of the sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall make an atonement for him as concerning his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. And if any one of the common people sin through ignorance, while he does something against any of the commandments of Yahweh concerning things which ought not be done, and be guilty, or if his sin, which he has sinned, come to his knowledge, then he shall bring his offering, a kid of the goats, a female without blemish, for his sin, which he hand upon the head of the sin offering, and kill the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. And the priest shall take of the blood of it with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood of it at the bottom of the altar. And he shall take away all the fat of it, as the fat is taken away from off the sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall burn it upon the altar for a sweet savor to Yahweh. And the priest shall make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. And if he bring a lamb for a sin offering, he shall bring it a female without blemish. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of the sin offering, and kill it for a sin offering in the place where they kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood of it at the bottom of the altar. And he shall take away all the fat that is on it, as the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice of the peace offerings. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar, according to the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. and the priest shall make an atonement for his sin that he has committed, and it shall be forgiven him. End of chapter. Leviticus chapter 5. And if a soul sin, and hear the voice of swearing, and is a witness, whether he has seen or known of it, if he does not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. Or if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast, or a carcass of unclean cattle, or the carcass of unclean creeping things, and if it be hidden from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. Or if he touch the uncleanness of man, whatsoever uncleanness it be, that a man shall be defiled with, and it is hid from him, and when he knows of it, then he shall be guilty. Or if a soul swear, pronouncing with his lips to do evil, or to do good, whatsoever it be that a man shall pronounce with an oath, and it be hid from him, when he knows of it, then he shall be guilty in one of these. And it shall be, when he shall be guilty in one of these things, that he shall confess that he has sinned in that thing. And he shall bring his trespass offering to Yahweh for his sin which he has sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb, or a kid of the goats for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his sin. And if he is not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring for his trespass, which he has committed, 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to Yahweh, one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And he shall bring them to the priest, who shall offer that which is for the sin offering first, and wring off his head from off his neck, but shall not divide it in 2. And he shall sprinkle of the blood of the sin offering upon the side of the altar, and the rest of the blood shall be wrung out at the bottom of the altar. It is a sin offering. And he shall offer the second for a burnt offering, according to the manner. And the priest shall make an atonement for him for his sin which he has sinned, and it shall be forgiven him. But if he is not able to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he that sins shall bring for his offering the 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a sin offering. He shall put no oil upon it, neither shall he put any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. Then shall he bring it to the priest, and the priest shall take his handful of it, a memorial of it, and burn it upon the altar according to the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him as touching his sin, that he has sinned in one of these, and it shall be forgiven him. And the remnant shall be the priest's as a meal offering. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, If a soul commit a trespass, and sin through ignorance in the holy things of Yahweh, then he shall bring for his trespass to Yahweh a ram without blemish out of the flocks, with your estimation by shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. And he shall make amends for the harm that he has done in the holy thing, and shall add the 5th part to it, and give it to the priest, and the priest shall make an atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. And if a soul sin, and commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of Yahweh, though he does not know it, yet is he guilty, and shall bear his iniquity. And he shall bring a ram without blemish out of the flock, with your estimation, for a trespass offering, to the priest. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his ignorance, wherein he has erred, and did not know, and it shall be forgiven him. It is a trespass offering. He has certainly trespassed against Yahweh. End of chapter.